Hey, I hope you're doing well. My name's Jake. I'm a big fan of making music, and people are often surprised to learn that I record all of my vocals right here in my home studio. In the modern era, it is really not necessary to rent a recording studio solely for the purpose of getting a vocal recording. It's not to say that studios aren't great or that working with an engineer isn't great, but for me, I find it very rewarding to get to work in my own home, on my own timetable, whenever the inspiration strikes for free. Over the years, I've definitely dialed in a process that gets me a really clean and consistent vocal recording at home. And yes, I do have some nice gear, and I think that nice gear makes a difference. But I would argue that the majority of the result that I get comes from simple, no-cost steps that I take before I record, which set me up for success. So let me show you what those steps are, and once we're ready to rock, we'll do a recording so that you can hear how it sounds for yourself. Let's dive in. Here we are, the humble beginnings of our vocal booth. This is my closet. I live in a studio apartment, so this is my one and only closet, and it's jammed with clothing and tools and long-term storage, all sorts of stuff. Let's open up the doors and turn the light on just so you can see what I'm doing. The first step will be to take all of the empty hangers out, just so that I don't have any plastic rattling around in my recordings. Ideally, someday I'll swap these for felt hangers, just so I can skip that step in the future. Next, I'm going to spread all the remaining hangers out, so that the shirts fill all of the open space in the closet. From here, I'm going to take 2 blankets, and I'm going to use them to cover the doors. I'll hold them in place using some wood clamps at the top of the door. I'm able to get up there pretty easily by stepping on the edge of the bed frame and a shelf that's inside the closet. I'm tucking excess fabric in between the 2 halves of the door, just to keep it from moving around and taking up space in the closet. With this particular moving blanket, I find it's helpful to use a binder clip on the very edge just to keep the folded layers together. And now I'll just rinse and repeat for the other door. Now that the doors are sorted, I'll set up the microphone stand. As you can see, I keep this boom stand right by the closet so that it's easily accessible. I also keep my pop filter and shock mount on the stand at all times, just to save myself a couple steps. As I open up the stand, I'm checking markings that I've made with masking tape all over the microphone stand. Those markings make it easy to quickly put the mic stand into more or less the same position every time that I set it up. So now I'll grab my microphone. This is my AKG C414 XL2 microphone. It's a large diaphragm condenser mic that is amazingly versatile, and it's also the best mic in my collection for recording vocals. As you can see, it just slots into the shock mount, and then we're good to go. Now I'm going to set up my work zone, and I'll start by folding this larger blanket out of the way. This is a lap desk that works perfectly for using my wireless keyboard and mouse over here. And now we can run our cables. The first cord is a headphone extension cable that's connected to my audio interface. And of course, I'll need an XLR cable for the microphone. This is a good time for me to bring the camera closer so that you can get a better view of everything that's going on here. Here we have the lap desk and the headphones. And here's that masking tape I mentioned. Everywhere that we have an important angle, I've added a piece of tape just to help me set everything correctly. Now you might be wondering what's going on with this piece of string. This is my plumb bob. If we follow the string all the way down, you can see that X marks the spot. As long as the feet of the stand are between the white lines that I've taped down, that X helps me make sure that the boom arm is properly angled orthogonally. Or in other words, am I where I want to be in the XZ plane, if you will? Now it's time for the fun stuff, the outboard gear. I'll plug the XLR from the mic into input 7 on this snake, which will connect it to the LA610. I'll turn the units on. And from there, I'll use the patch bay to route the 610's output to one of the DBX compressors. Now I'll just run through double checking that everything is set the way that I like it. Here on the screen are my ideal settings for this signal chain. I want to be perfectly clear that you do not need to spend thousands on microphones and outboard gear to get really high quality recordings. A decent microphone and an interface with a good signal-to-noise ratio will absolutely get the job done. I love this gear, and it does make a difference. But like with everything in this process, it's all about doing the best I can with what I've got. Moving on, let's get this room divider set up. This tucks nicely between my bed and my nightstand. And once it's in place, I can grab the large blanket from earlier and drape it over the top. To be honest, I'm not sure how much of a difference this makes compared to leaving the room wide open. The microphone rejects sound from the rear of the mic, and that probably does most of the heavy lifting. But whatever, I have these things, so if I set them up, at the very least, I'll have the peace of mind that I did the best I could with the things that I have. Next, I'll grab my acoustic instruments and set them over here, string side down, to make sure that we don't accidentally cause audible sympathetic vibrations. So this is my desk, and my external monitor is actually on a swivel mount. I'll pull that out and angle it towards my closet so that I can see what I'm doing when it's time to record. Now, all of that technical stuff isn't worth anything if the performance isn't good. So I'll use my phone to change up the lights and set the mood. So now I'm back at the mic. As you can see, we have our controls easily accessible right there. We have the headphones, all thanks to that extension cord. We have the guitars face down so that we don't get any sympathetic vibrations. The outboard gear is over here to my left. Just gorgeous. And we can very easily see the screen thanks to that adjustable monitor arm. So those are the steps that I take to get set up. Definitely a little cumbersome, but I do think it's worth it. Let's take a listen to how it sounds.
Everything is energy. Everything is energy that wants to have some fun. All it wants to do is have a little fun. I've used it long enough to come to learn we got it from the sun.
Man, every time I hear vocals that are recorded in this space, I am just blown away by how good they sound. And again, I do have really nice gear, and I'm not going to pretend that nice gear doesn't make a difference. When people say gear doesn't matter, what they really mean is that gear shouldn't be a limitation. And I totally agree with that. All of this fancy gear that I have is simply coloring the sound. But at a fundamental level, the quality of the recording is coming from all of those simple things we did that didn't cost a dime. Great gear is not going to solve a standing wave because you put the microphone in a weird spot in the room, or sympathetic vibrations from an acoustic guitar, or plastic clothing hangers clanking around in the background, or any of those other things we solved for before we even hit record. And building a rock-solid foundation by thinking about all of those things is what makes the great gear shine. If this video gave you any ideas for how you can improve your own home recordings, I would love to hear about that in the comments below. And if you liked this video, please do hit that like button. It's the best way for me to know what kind of stuff you guys are into as I continue to make videos. If you're curious to hear any of the songs that I've actually been producing, feel free to check out my bands, The Rebel Nerds and Nuclear Shrub. If you're at all into these videos, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell, and that way you'll be notified the next time I put a video out. That's going to be it for this one. So thanks so much for watching, and until next time, let's go make some music.
A canvas or a tune,